Before we begin, you need to understand something about the man at the center of this story. His name is Joshua Elyon, and there is no one on earth like him. You've never seen his face on a magazine cover. He doesn't sit for interviews. He doesn't ring the bell at a stock exchange. But make no mistake, every system you depend on today is running on something he controls. The foundational ones. Every industry on earth, energy, manufacturing, agriculture, technology, medicine, traces back to facilities his family owns and operates on every continent. Before a single product is built, before a single server powers on, something in that chain comes from him. He and his father co-chair the world's wealthiest and most influential family trust. It is not publicly traded. It has no ticker symbol. It does not appear on any list you have ever read, because men like Joshua Elyon do not need lists to confirm what they already know. World leaders take his calls. When his trust shifts its position, governments adjust their policies. When his manufacturing capacity moves, global markets feel it within the week. But here is what will stop you cold. Joshua Elyon does not hoard what he has. The law at the center of everything his family built is this: receive everything, give everything back, and watch it multiply beyond measure. Every resource he controls exists to benefit the world, not to enrich him further. He has thousands of staff and brilliant, fiercely loyal, placed in key positions in every major city on earth. Not to surveil, not to control, but to serve, to build, to carry out the values that Joshua and his father established at the very beginning. This is Joshua Elyon. Now, here is where the story begins. Something had gone terribly wrong. Joshua's father had built something extraordinary. Not just a company, not just a trust, but a family. People who were meant to know the Elyons, trust them, and thrive under the systems they had built. People who were loved, chosen, provided for in ways most of them never even realized. But there was an adversary. His name is not important right now. What matters is what he did. He was once one of Joshua's father's most trusted insiders, brilliant, influential, given access to the inner workings of everything the Elyons had built. And somewhere along the way, ambition turned into betrayal. He didn't use tanks or missiles. He was far too sophisticated for that. He took territory the way the most dangerous men always do, quietly, patiently, from the inside out. He ran a disinformation campaign so thorough, so deeply embedded, that over time the people who were meant to trust Joshua and his father began to believe something entirely different. They were told the Elyons were cold, controlling, that the systems they built were designed to exploit, not to serve, that the father's guidelines were not protection, they were a cage, and the people believed it. They walked away. They aligned themselves, unknowingly in most cases, with the very man who had deceived them, and now they were living inside his territory, cut off from everything Joshua's family had prepared for them, confused, vulnerable, in danger they could not fully see. Joshua watched from the boardroom. Every instinct said, respond. He had elite special forces, answers to no one teams capable of moving into any territory on Earth and dismantling any operation the adversary had built. One directive and those teams would be wheels up within the hour. He could have ended this by morning, but he couldn't. Not because he lacked the power, but because the very people he was trying to save were now embedded throughout every layer of what the adversary controlled. A tactical strike, however precise, however overwhelming, would devastate the people Joshua came to rescue. This wasn't a military problem. It was a heart problem, and hearts cannot be liberated by force. The wound wasn't in the infrastructure. The wound was in what the people believed. They needed to see, with their own eyes, who Joshua and his father actually were. And there was only one way to do that. He had to go in himself, not as the co-chairman, not surrounded by a security detail, not announced, celebrated, or protected by his title. He had to enter the adversary's territory the way the people lived, ordinary, present, without the armor his position normally afforded him. His father didn't ask him to go. He volunteered. He walked into the boardroom, set the full weight of his authority on the desk and said, "Send me. I'll go in myself." Not to conquer, not to retaliate, but to live among them long enough that the truth of who his family was could not be denied. It was the most dangerous assignment in the history of their enterprise, and it was entirely voluntary. And as he moved through their world, people began to wonder, why would a man like this come here himself? Why walk these streets, eat at these tables, speak to these people personally, when he could have sent an army? The answer was something most of them had never considered. Joshua had not come to extract them. He had come to propose to them. The adversary's hold was not a chain on their wrists. It was a lie in their minds. You cannot force a person out of a belief with a tactical strike. The rescue required something no special forces team could deliver. It required a yes. The form that yes would take was not a contract or a ceasefire. It was a marriage proposal. To say yes to Joshua was to leave the adversary's world behind, to take the Elyon name, to come under his protection, his provision, his future. The proposal was the rescue. The wedding would be the completion of everything he came to do. He found 4 women, 4 different responses to the most important proposal ever made. The first woman was bright, social, and constantly in motion. Exactly the kind of person the adversary's system was designed to keep that way. Her morning started before she got out of bed. The algorithm already knew what she liked better than she did, turning 60 seconds into an hour before she noticed. By evening, too exhausted to think, she reached for the phone one more time. Joshua's message came through. Clear, personal, unmistakable, different from everything else on her screen. Interesting, she thought. Then a notification arrived, a new reel, a comment on her post, and Joshua's message slipped beneath the surface, buried before the next minute was out. She was not a bad person. She was a captured one. The adversary had invested billions into systems engineered to ensure she would never be quiet long enough to hear a voice like Joshua's. The rescue was right there. She simply never stopped long enough to receive it. The second woman said yes, immediately and genuinely. She posted about Joshua, full of feeling. For a moment, something real was forming, but the adversary was patient. He let her excitement play out, then used the same platform to begin the quiet work of erosion. Comments shifted. A trusted friend posted doubts. Threads appeared questioning everything she had just embraced. She hadn't expected choosing Joshua to mean standing alone in comment sections where the majority disagreed with her. This is harder than I expected, she told herself. And quietly, without drama, she stepped back, returned to the community she had always known. The rescue had been within reach. Her own network kept her exactly where she was. The third woman wanted to say yes. That was never in question. She had seen enough of Joshua, heard enough, understood enough, that something in her recognized the truth of who he was. But she was tangled, and the adversary knew exactly how to keep her that way. Not through controversy, but through comfort. He gave her Netflix and Amazon Prime, and the perfectly reasonable logic that a woman who worked as hard as she did deserved to rest. So at the end of each day, she sat on the couch and told herself, just one episode. One became 3. Weekends that might have been spent with Joshua became weekends absorbed into whatever series she was 4 episodes into. Not rebellion, simply the path of least resistance, chosen daily. She told herself she would answer Joshua when life settled down. Life did not settle down. It never does inside enemy territory. That is by design. But the fourth woman paused. In a territory built on momentum and noise, she paused. She had the same apps as everyone else. She knew the pull of all of it, but she noticed something. The more time she gave the screens, the less she could hear anything else. The noise was filling space that something else was trying to occupy. So she put the phone down. Not forever, not perfectly, but deliberately. And into that space, Joshua's message arrived. With room to land. She read it again. She didn't fully understand it, but she understood enough to know that understanding more mattered. She pushed past the adversary's narrative and kept leaning toward Joshua anyway. I don't know everything about this man, she told herself, but I want to. That wanting was the crack in the adversary's wall. Joshua had been waiting, patiently and faithfully, for exactly that crack. She said yes, not perfectly, not without fear, not with every question answered, But she said it, and in saying it, she stepped out from under everything the adversary had built over her. Not because she was dragged out, but because she chose the man who walked into enemy territory for the sole purpose of finding her. The engagement was complete. Before Joshua left the territory, the full weight of what his mission had cost him became clear. It was never just a rescue, it was a ransom. The adversary held a legal claim over every person in his territory, a debt accumulated through years of living under his systems and his rules. That debt was real, and it had to be paid before anyone could walk free. Joshua paid it, all of it, every last demand, personally, completely, without condition. Not just for the woman who said yes, but for all four of them. The adversary had no legal claim left to make. The bride was free to leave, if she chose to. Before departing, Joshua made two promises. I am coming back, not quietly, not incognito, but in full authority, with his army and power, to complete what he started and dismantle everything the adversary had built. You will not wait alone. He sent the advocate, his closest confidant, specifically to prepare the bride for the life she said yes to. The advocate is not helping her pick out a dress. He is preparing a woman shaped entirely by the adversary's world to thrive in the Elyon household, which runs on completely different principles. This is not overnight work. It is daily, patient, unglamorous work. But the advocate never tires of it. And at the center of everything the advocate does is a letter. Not a legal document, not a policy manual, but a love letter. Personal and detailed, written so that in his absence, she would never have to wonder who Joshua was, what he felt for her, what he was preparing for her, or what he was asking of her. Every day the fourth woman faces a choice: reach for the phone or open the letter. When she opens it, the advocate sits beside her and brings it alive. The man she said yes to becomes more real with every page. There is an old parable about 10 women waiting for a groom. 5 were ready, 5 were not. When the groom arrived and the door closed, the 5 unprepared women heard 5 devastating words. I do not know you. Not, you didn't qualify. Not, you made too many mistakes. The fourth bride will never hear those words, because she chose the letter over the busyness, the advocate over the algorithm, the daily knowing over the comfortable noise. When Joshua stands at the door, he will recognize her face, her voice, the woman who chose him not just once, but every ordinary day that came after. Most of you know this story. Joshua is Jesus. The Father is God. The adversary is the enemy of your soul. The territory is this world. The disinformation campaign has been running for thousands of years. And the 4 women? They are not characters in a parable. They are every person watching this right now. Jesus paid the ransom. Jesus left the letter. Jesus sent his advocate to prepare you. And Jesus is coming back sooner than you think. The letter is before you. The ransom has been paid. The rescue party is coming. And the groom is still waiting for your answer.